Hello and welcome. My name is Alan and we are back with more the Bhagavad Gita. Today we will be working on chapter 3 of the Gita, with first what it should be or how it often is seen, and then the actual verse itself. But let's get into this. Chapter 3, Selfless Service. The title of this chapter in Sanskrit is Karma Yoga, the way of action. And here we take an apparently sharp turn away from the subject of the previous chapter. In fact, Arjuna changes the subject completely. Krishna has been trying to convince him that he has an immortal soul, but Arjuna continues to worry about his immediate predicament. It is not that he is uninterested in mystical enlightenment, but his main concern at the moment is just what he is supposed to do next. Or, he asks, perhaps what he does is not so important after all. Has Krishna been telling him to concentrate on acquiring spiritual wisdom and to forget about the apparent duties in the world? Krishna replies that there is no way Arjuna can avoid the obligation of selfless action, or karma yoga. Arjuna must act selflessly, out of a sense of duty. He must work not for his own sake, but for the welfare of all. Krishna points out that this is a basic law underlying all creation. Each being must do its part in the grand scheme of things, and there is no way to avoid this obligation, except perhaps by the complete enlightenment which loosens all the old bonds of karma. Here, the Gita refers to the doctrine of karma, one of the basic teachings in all Hindu and Buddhist scriptures. Karma literally means deed or action. That is sometimes called the law of karma. Refers to an underlying law of cause and effect that is seen to permeate all existence. The idea is that every action leads to a reasonable result, and consequently that everything that happens can be traced to something done in the past. Actions determine destiny. This is the basic idea of karma. If anything happens to us that is truly good, we must have done something in the past to deserve it. If something ill befalls us, then at some time in the past we did something that was not so meritorious. This is the basic moral law that all great spiritual traditions share, the belief that we reap what we sow. The Hindu tradition gave a great deal of thought to this problem of moral cause and effect, and generation after generation of spiritual teachers fathomed its depths and implications. One fear that developed over time was that all action was, in sense, an open door to bondage. Anything a person did would bind them to the endless cycle of cause and effect. Some fruits of action would, of course, be pleasant. Not all karma is painful. But even this pleasure could be a trap, because we would seek it compulsively, tying ourselves tighter and tighter to the responsibilities and opportunities of the worldly life, and forgetting our spiritual dimension altogether. In chapter 3, Krishna begins to tell Arjuna the way out of this maze of cause and effect. It is not to avoid work, especially the duties required by his station in life, but to perform those duties without selfish attachment to their fruit or outcome. If Arjuna follows his path of selfless work, Krishna explains, he will enjoy this world as well as the next. More important, he will gain a spiritual blessing and will the lessening of his debt of karma. Only when he is free from every bond of karma, every consequence of past action, can he achieve life's ultimate goal. The world is bound to its own activity, for all creatures except the illumined man or woman work for their own pleasure and gain. Because they act selfishly, they are bound by the results, whether good or bad. We must act in a selfless spirit, Krishna says, without ego involvement and without getting entangled in whether things work out the way we want. Only then will we not fall into the terrible net of karma. We cannot hope to escape karma by refraining from our duties, even to survive in the world. We must act. True, the Hindu scriptures do hold out another path, Jnana Yoga, the path of wisdom, which does not enjoin action. But Krishna does not really offer this to Arjuna as an alternative. It is acknowledged and then dropped. Perhaps Krishna knows that Arjuna is not the type to disengage himself and go off on the search of the mystical wisdom. For Arjuna, the active life is essential. The danger, of course, of a life of active engagement in the world is that Arjuna will get caught up in the actions and begin to act out of selfish motives. If this were to happen, he would be doomed to spiritual failure. Having a good deal of self-knowledge, Arjuna senses this danger. He asks Krishna a fundamental question: what power binds us to our selfish ways? Even if we wish to act rightly, so often we do get the wrong thing. That what power moves us? Krishna replies that anger and selfish desire are our greatest enemies. They are destructive powers that can compel us to wander away from our purpose, to end up in self-delusion and despair. Here it is necessary to introduce two technical terms from Hindu philosophy. The Gita is not an academic work of philosophy, but a poetic, practical text. Still, it does refer from time to time to Sankhya, one of the 6 traditional schools of Indian philosophy. In Sankhya, the phenomenal world of mind and matter is described as having 3 basic qualities or gunas: sattva, or goodness; light and purity, which is the rajas; passion, activity, energy, and tamas. Sattva, which is goodness, light, and purity; rajas, which is passion, activity, and energy; and tamas, which is darkness, ignorance, and inertia. According to Sankhya, spiritual evolution progresses from tamas to rajas to sattva, and final liberation takes the soul beyond the three gunas altogether. Here Krishna warns Arjuna to beware the pitfalls of rajas, for it is from rajas that anger and selfish desire arise. Arjuna must realize that his true nature, the Atman, is above entanglement in the gunas. The gunas act and react upon one another, but Arjuna's inner being is not affected. If he cannot reach this detachment, he will be always caught in the emotional storms of passion, rajas, or the quagmires of inertia, tamas, which alternate in dominating the mind and body. Krishna offers Arjuna the example of King Janaka, well known from holy legend as a model of princely estate. Janaka was a king who ruled well and did not shirk his responsibilities, yet he was detached and worked from a sense of duty, not for personal gain or enjoyment. He was revered as a royal sage who pursued his enlightenment not by renouncing the world, but by working in it and contributing to its welfare, thus enjoying the best of both worlds. Chapter 3, Selfless Service, the verse. Arjuna, O Krishna, you have said that knowledge is greater than action. Why then do you ask me to wage this terrible war? Your advice seems inconsistent. Give me one path to follow to the supreme good. Krishna, at the beginning of time I declared two paths for the pure heart. Jnana Yoga, the contemplative path of spiritual wisdom, and Karma Yoga, the active path of selfless service. One who shirks action does not attain freedom. No one can gain perfection by abstaining from work. Indeed, there is no one who rests for even an instant. All creatures are driven to action by their own nature. Those who abstain from action while allowing the mind to dwell in sensual pleasure cannot be called sincere spiritual aspirants, but they excel who control their senses through the mind, using them for selfless service. Fulfill all your duties. Action is better than inaction, even to maintain your body. Arjuna, you are obliged to act. Selfish action imprisons the world. Act selflessly, without any thought of personal profit. At the beginning, mankind and the obligation of selfless service were created together. Through selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find the fulfillment of your desires. This is the promise of the Creator. Honor and cherish the devas as they honor and cherish you. Through this honor and love, you will attain the supreme good. All human desires are fulfilled by the devas, who are pleased by selfless service. That anyone who enjoys the things given by the devas without offering selfless acts in return is a thief. The spiritually minded who eat the spirit of service are freed from all their sins. But the selfish who prepare food for their own satisfaction eat sin. Living creatures are nourished by food, and food is nourished by rain. Rain itself is the water of life, which comes from selfless worship and service. Every selfless act, Arjuna, is born from Brahman, the eternal, infinite Godhead. Brahman is present in every act of service. All life turns on this law. O Arjuna, those who violate it, indulging the senses for their own pleasure and ignoring the needs of others, have wasted their life. But those who realize the self are always satisfied. Having found the source of joy and fulfillment, they no longer seek happiness from the external world. They have nothing to gain or lose by any action. Neither people nor things can affect their security. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless work, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. It was by such work that Janaka attained perfection. Others, too, have followed this path. What the outstanding person does, others will they to do. The standard such people create will be followed by the whole world. There is nothing in the three worlds for me to gain, Arjuna, nor is there anything I do not have. I continue to act, but I am not driven by any need of my own. If I ever refrained from continuous work, everyone would immediately follow my example. But if I stopped working, I would be the cause of cosmic chaos and finally of the destruction of this world and these people. The ignorant work for their own profit, Arjuna. The wise work for the welfare of the world, without thought for themselves. By abstaining from work, you will confuse the ignorant, who are engrossed in their actions. Perform all work carefully, guided by compassion. All actions are performed by the gunas and prakriti. Deluded by identification with the ego, a person thinks, I am the doer. But the illumined man or woman understands the domain of the gunas and is not attached. Perhaps some know that the gunas interact with each other and do not claim to be the doer. Those who are deluded by the operation of the gunas become attached to the results of their action. Those who understand the truth should not unsettle the ignorant. Performing all actions for my sake, completely absorbed in the self and without expectations, fight, but stay free from the fever of the ego. Those who live in accordance with these divine laws, without complaining, firmly established in faith, are released from karma. Those who violate these laws, criticizing and complaining, are ultimately deluded and are the cause of their own suffering. Even the wise act within the limitations of their own nature. Every creature is subject to prakriti. What is the use of repression? The senses have been conditioned by attraction to the pleasant and aversion to the unpleasant. Excuse me. Do not be ruled by them. They are obstacles in your path. It is better to strive in one's own dharma than to succeed in the dharma of another. Nothing is ever lost in following one's own dharma, but competition in another's dharma breeds fear and insecurity. Arjuna, what is the force that binds us to selfish deeds, O Krishna? What power moves us, even against our will, as if forcing us? Krishna, it is selfish desire and anger arising from the guna of rajas. These are the appetites and evils which threaten a person in this life. Just as a fire is covered by smoke and a mirror is obscured by dust, just as the embryo rests deep within the womb, knowledge is hidden by selfish desire. Hidden, Arjuna, by this unquenchable fire for self-satisfaction, the inveterate enemy of the wise. Selfish desire is found in the senses, mind, and intellect, misleading them and burying the understanding in delusion. Fight with all your strength, Arjuna, controlling your senses. Conquer your enemy, the destroyer of knowledge and realization. The senses are higher than the body, the mind higher than the senses. Above the mind is intellect, and above the intellect is the Atman. Thus, knowing that which is supreme, let the Atman rule the ego. Use your mighty arms to slay the fierce enemy that is your selfish desire. And that ends that particular chapter. But yeah. So, Arjuna is still being guided by Krishna, who tells him, look, there is no way really around action. It's just do things because they are just. They are what must be done. Not for the satisfaction it may bring. So yeah, Arjuna questions, well, why are we driven to be so selfish? What brings these desires? And Krishna proclaims, it is anger and anger and something that produces this need of selfishness. What did he say it was? From the guna of rajas. Which the guna of rajas we explained earlier in the verse. He's like, there are several gunas. Gunas of tamas, gunas of rajas, and the gunas. What was the other gunas? I know they were supposed to be the good gunas. I forget what they named them, though. But it's like selflessness and stuff like that. Where did you list the gunas at, my friend? Now, in talking about how the chapter is often seen, they did mention, Krishna does mention Jnana Yoga. That's at the very beginning, and then he just kind of doesn't talk about it anymore. He's like, the one that you must seek is Karma Yoga, because you are a man of action. Oh, goodness. I was trying to find the gunas again, but I cannot. Alas. But yeah. He tells them, you must always seek to do what is right. Not for the satisfaction it may bring you, but because it is what you must do. Arjuna, you are a man of action. You must act. And he tells him of King Janaka, or Janaka. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I know I'm probably butchering a lot of the names and words, but I'm a try. I'm a try. And I know once I end this video, I'll find the gunas again, and it's bugging me. It really is. But alas. Hopefully you remember me in referring to these gunas. But yeah. Again, anger, rage, is being provided as the great evil the great block of really um, growing according to Krishna. Sattva was the other one. But yeah, the Rajas, which he often lists as what's so dangerous, is passion, activity, and energy. So yeah, your desires out of selfishness, your if you have an unbridled passion, these can lead down the dangerous road that they, from what I can understand, that they are implying. But to reach the sattva, the proper gunas, you have to travel through tamas to get to rajas, to get finally to sattva. And then I think they mentioned at that point that's when you should have the ability to proceed beyond all. So yeah, Thomas, Tamas, Thomas. They feel more like understanding good from bad, wrong from right. They're the very basics of humanity. Otherwise, you're just traveling in a world where you only seek the sin of your own desires. It's something we all fight with in a way. I myself, gluttony. I've always been a big guy. I've always enjoyed food. But yeah. But I also, based on what they would say, I struggle at the Rajas level. Because I have a lot of passion for things. I have a lot of anger. What did they say? Selfless service. That's the actual verses we want. Yeah, earlier when we were talking about what is often read into it, if the gunas act and react upon one another, but Arjuna's inner being is not affected, if he cannot reach this detachment, he will always be caught in the emotional storms of passion, the rajas, or the quagmires of inertia, tamas. So yeah. So again, the rajas, passion, activity, energy. So for me, I would still be struggling between tamas and the rajas. if we were to read it this way, because I don't really have much in the way of energy, but I do have a lot of passion. I do try to do some things. But yeah. It's where a lot of my problems would exist, is in the rajas. Which, again, the scripture itself reads, hey, that's where you're going to often run into your issues, is in the rajas. I try to focus on better things, to better treat people. I know some people use different forms of religious ideation. I've pretty much decided most religions don't work with me. Because often it all comes down to mankind and what they do. There can be many an innocent, and we often see it in the real world, where many an innocent die unjustly. So yeah, real good example is the two Palestinian twins that were born to a new mom, and 4 days later they, along with their mother, are killed in another airstrike by the IDF. So yeah, yeah. But we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.